One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, Matt. The disruption theory that Clay Christensen is known for is sort of originated in his research about how disruption occurred in technology. And obviously, college sports isn't the technology industry, but I think there's some interesting parallels between his theory of disruption and how it happens in technology and in other sectors in business, and how college athletics thinks about and addresses various segments of the fan and donor base. The core tenet behind Clay Christensen's theory of disruption is that companies often are disrupted or they fail not because they're doing a poor job, but precisely because they're very, very competent at servicing and accessing their most profitable current customers. So their short-term activities are all geared towards the cultivation, satisfaction, and deriving of maximum revenue from their current customers who are yielding the highest ROI to the investments that these companies are making. And this, in college athletics, when we think about it, I think it's largely analogous to how athletics organizations are often drawn towards cultivating and stewarding their most supportive donors, who in many cases are the older ones. I mean, it's logical that obviously the folks that have accrued a lifetime of wealth are able to support institutions more robustly. So athletics organizations understandably then are biased towards gearing a lot of their stewardship programs and their donor relations programs to these folks. This is competent behavior. This is competent management. You know, you're obviously wanting to do your best to derive as much value from these supporters as you can. But over the long term, it's possible that by focusing exclusively or overwhelmingly on this section of the donor base, that the development of future donors is an activity that's overlooked. And it's very difficult for organizations to allocate resources to future donors who don't have, at the present time, a very significant ROI, because allocating resources in pursuit of those folks comes with a trade-off in resources that would otherwise be allocated to, again, the most profitable or most supportive current donors who tend to be older. So this is an interesting trade-off. It's an interesting thing to think about, and it's certainly fun to borrow these types of theories from other areas of business.
Yeah, it is. And how are you guys approaching this challenge at Stanford with your donor base?
Well, it's interesting. Like everybody struggles with this. I think we do as well. And as we have resource allocation decisions, resource allocation conversations internally and make resource allocation decisions, it's very tempting to be, if something needs to be eliminated or we don't have the bandwidth or resources to dedicate to something, it's very tempting to overlook any programs or efforts that are going into generating support from young alums and younger fans. And we've just had to be very disciplined about it. We continue to work on it. We've just had to be very disciplined about being intentional and carving out time, energy, and some resources towards the cultivation of younger donors. And we have a few specific programs that we've worked on, but it's still a work in progress for us, as it is, I think, for many people around the country.
How would you debunk the theory of people listening who say, "Oh, well, it's Stanford, it's the Bay Area, it's the type of alum that they push out have on average, have a larger giving capacity early on in their professional lives because of their educational background that leads to, high yield professional pursuits." How would you debunk that theory of it's unique to only Stanford, and to say that it can be applied to other institutions across the nation?
Well, I think that, I would just say that we aren't immune from this trend either. Our donor base is overweight with older folks, just as I think many donor bases around the country are. And when I say that, I mean the ratio of people in older age brackets as a percentage of our overall donor base is disproportionately more than it is if you compared the overall donor base to the university. So donors to athletics at Stanford are disproportionately older than donors to the university at large. And, you know, obviously we only have access to our own data. I feel confident in stating that if other people around the country did the same analysis, they would find similar results. And I think it's just a point of emphasis in terms of understanding the lifetime value of a donor and being able to think about the resource allocation decision in terms of lifetime value, not necessarily short-term ROI. I think that enables organizations to be more comfortable devoting resources to cultivating a population that might not have an immediate ROI, but certainly has a valuable, are going to be valuable contributors throughout the course of their life.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.